The Starfire drifted through the last stretch of hyperspace like a lone predator, her hull reflecting the glow of distant nebulae. Captain Elias Voss stood at the command deck's forward viewport, his sharp eyes fixed on the swirling mist ahead. Beyond that veil lay the Zarthan homeworld, a place shrouded in rumors and fear. Traders whispered of travelers who ignored Zarthan summons, only to vanish from every known trade route, their ships erased as if they had never existed. Elias, a man who had navigated the darkest regions of the galaxy, felt a knot tighten in Haman. His chest the planet emerged from the haze like a ghostly jewel. Silver clouds coiled around its surface, breaking just enough to reveal flashes of crystalline structures gleaming beneath the atmosphere. The Zarthans were said to be as beautiful as they were dangerous, a matriarchal society with laws older than many civilizations combined. He had heard of their unyielding sense of honor, of rewards that came wrapped in chains, of mercy that could feel like punishment. As Starfire's hull vibrated with re-entry, Elias wondered which of these fates awaited him. His crew moved quietly, every command obeyed with a sharpness born of tension. They trusted him. He was the kind of captain who never asked his people to face what he would not face himself. Years of exploring hostile systems, forging alliances with alien clans, and surviving battles that should have claimed his life had carved a man of resilience and iron will. Yet there was a compassion in his voice, a strange softness in his eyes when he looked at his crew. That reminded them why they followed him into danger. "Captain," said Rin, his first officer, breaking the silence. "Landing coordinates confirmed. The Zarthans request you alone. No escort." "Of course," Elias murmured, almost to himself. It was both a demand and a test. The Zarthans would tolerate no display of strength, no sign of distrust. Keep Starfire at full readiness. If I don't return by dawn cycle, you break orbit. And run, no heroics. Rin swallowed but nodded. "Understood, sir." The landing platform shimmered under the mist like polished steel. As the boarding ramp descended, Elias stepped onto alien soil, feeling the faint hum of energy beneath his boots. A delegation awaited him, their silver robes rippling like liquid light, faces veiled but eyes bright with intelligence and scrutiny. Without words, they guided him through winding corridors that twisted like living architecture, walls breathing faint glows of bioluminescence. The grand hall loomed ahead, a cathedral of pale crystal pillars and cascading light. At its center sat the Zarthan queen. She was taller than he expected, her presence both graceful and commanding. Her skin held the sheen of pearl, and her eyes, those molten gold eyes, burned with a wisdom that felt ancient, almost predatory. Elias forced himself not to falter under her gaze. "You have crossed into our midst," she said, her voice melodic yet edged with power. "You saved what was ours, and for that you have been summoned. Our laws demand balance. You will take what we offer." Elias stood rooted, his heartbeat steady but heavy. There was danger in her words, veiled in honor. He sensed this was not a simple reward. The Zarthans never gave anything without price. "Your Majesty," he said with measured respect, "I came to help because it was the right thing to do. I expect no reward." The Queen's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Then you will be tested, Captain Elias Voss. A choice awaits you, one that will bind your fate in ways you cannot yet see." Her tone was neither threat nor promise, but something in between, a knife edge of intrigue that made his pulse quicken. For the first time in years, Elias felt truly uncertain of what lay ahead. The grand hall of the Zarthan palace was silent except for the soft hum of energy flowing through its crystalline walls. Captain Elias Voss stood before the Queen, his boots planted firmly on the silver-tiled floor, his hands relaxed but ready. At his sides, Her gaze, molten and unblinking, seemed to weigh his soul. Behind her throne of carved luminescent stone, the mist-shrouded world of the Zarthan stretched beyond wide glass arches, a living backdrop of otherworldly beauty. With a mere motion of her hand, two figures were led into the hall. They moved with the grace of predators, yet their wrists were bound with chains that gleamed as if woven from liquid light. The first woman, Laura, had hair like silver dust that shimmered with every step, and eyes that glowed faintly, as though they held galaxies within them. The second, Nissa, carried herself like a blade forged into human form, her dark skin reflecting a sheen like polished obsidian, her sharp, piercing gaze locking on Elias the moment she entered. "They are the daughters of our law," the queen declared, her melodic voice echoing across the hall. "You saved what was ours, Captain Voss, and by the decree of our ancestors, a savior shall not leave our world empty-handed. You must choose one of these women as your reward." The words struck him like a physical blow. Elias glanced from Lara to Nissa. They did not look at him the way slaves might regard a master. There was no plea for mercy, no desperation, only a heavy silence and a flicker of something deeper resignation, perhaps, or a dignity forged under harsh rule. Unsettled him. "Your Majesty," Elias began carefully, "I do not understand. I cannot simply choose between them as though they were objects. They are not possessions." The queen's gaze hardened, though her voice remained soft, almost mocking. "They are bound by duty, Captain. One is a scholar, the mind of stars, and wisdom. The other is a warrior, the heart of strength and fire. By our traditions one must serve you, and the other remains here, chained to her fate. This is not cruelty. It is the order of things." The silence that followed stretched thin, heavy as the air before a storm. Elias felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. His crew's warnings rang in his mind about the Zarthans. Merciless customs, about their disdain for outsiders who defied their laws. Choosing neither could insult them. Choosing one would condemn the other to an unknown destiny. He turned to the women. Laura's luminous eyes met his with quiet intelligence, but there was pain there, a suppressed sorrow that cut through him. Nissa's gaze was fierce, challenging him as though daring him to make the wrong choice. For a moment he considered, choosing neither, but the thought of walking away and leaving them behind felt like a betrayal he could never forgive himself for. "I cannot choose between them," Elias said finally, his voice firm. "If you would honor me, then honor both. I will take them together, or I take neither." The hall fell deathly silent. Zarthan guards shifted, their hands tightening on their ceremonial weapons. Gasps rippled through the court, and a tense, vibrating energy filled the air. The queen rose from her throne, her expression unreadable, but her presence growing sharper, heavier. "You dare defy our laws?" she asked, her tone dangerously quiet. The words slithered into the space between them like coiled steel. Elias did not flinch. He stepped forward, his jaw set. "I do not defy your laws, Your Majesty. I defy the idea that one must be left behind when both deserve freedom. If my choice must shape my destiny, then let my destiny be theirs as well." The queen studied him for what felt like an eternity. Her golden eyes narrowed, and then, slowly, her lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. "You are bold, human. Few have spoken so in this hall and lived to tell of it. Very well, I will grant your wish." The chains clinked as Laura and Nissa looked at him, their expressions stunned. For the first time, he saw something break through. Their masks something like hope, faint but unshakable. "But hear me well," the queen continued. "The chains they wear are not merely of metal. They are forged from duty, honor, and blood. They bind not only them, but you. If you fail them, if you break them, you will carry the weight of their dishonor until death claims you. Do you accept this burden?" Elias straightened, his heart pounding but his mind unwavering. "I do," he said. The queen inclined her head, a strange light flickering in her eyes as if she saw something in him that even he did not see in himself. "Then take them, Captain Voss. You will find that the path you have chosen will test you beyond anything you have ever known." As they left the hall together, the weight of the choice settled over Elias like a mantle. The Zarthan mist curled around the edges of the landing platform as they returned to Starfire, but this time the mist felt heavier, almost watchful, as though the planet itself had judged him and found him worthy or foolish. Ra walked quietly beside him, her silver hair glinting against the dull light. "No one has ever chosen both," she said softly, her voice like distant bells. "Then maybe it's time someone did," Elias replied, glancing at her and Nissa. "I don't care what they think you are. You're not chains to me." Nissa gave him a long look, unreadable but fierce. "Then you'd better prove it," she said. The Starfire's engines roared to life as they ascended through the clouds, leaving behind the Zarthan world and its strange, glimmering laws. But Elias knew they hadn't truly left anything behind. The real journey, the one that would test every ounce of his strength, his loyalty, and his heart, had only just begun. The Starfire cut through the darkness of space, her engines purring like a predator in wait. Captain Elias Voss stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the swirling clouds of the Zarthan homeworld shrinking into the distance. The weight of his decision pressed against his chest like invisible armor, heavy, unyielding. He had chosen both Laura and Nissa, defying the Queen's ancient laws in front of her entire court. It was a decision that would echo far beyond the misty skies they had just left. The doors to the deck slid open with a hiss. Nissa entered, her chains glinting in the dim light, her movements silent and measured like a soldier stalking prey. She looked at Elias with an intensity that seemed to cut through him. "Do you even know what you've done, Captain?" she asked, her voice sharp and low. Elias turned to her, his expression unreadable but his eyes steady. "I know I couldn't. Walk away and leave one of you behind. That's all that matters right now." Nissa's gaze narrowed. "You think you've saved us? You've tied yourself to our fate. Those chains we wear, those are not mere symbols. They will pull you into conflicts you don't understand. The Zarthan Queen doesn't grant exceptions. She tests those who defy her, and her tests, they can kill." Before Elias could answer, Laura stepped quietly into the room. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the ship's lighting, her presence softer but no less commanding. "She is right," Laura said gently, her voice carrying a calm that contrasted with Nissa's sharpness. "The Queen did not allow this out of mercy. She allowed it because she wants to see what kind of man you are. You have become part of a game that has destroyed stronger men than you." Elias sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "Then I'll play her game. But I'll play it on my terms. Whatever comes next, I'll face it. You're not property to me. You're not chains, you're crew." The moment hung between them, tense and charged with unspoken emotion. Nissa's jaw tightened as though she wanted to argue, but for the first time there was a faint flicker of respect in her eyes. Laura, however, tilted her head slightly, studying Elias as though weighing the truth of his words. The ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain," Rin's voice came through, strained and uneasy. "We've got a problem. Long-range scanners are picking up multiple Zarthan signatures. They're following us." Elias straightened instantly. "How many?" "4 ships, fast war class." The Starfire was built for exploration, not battle. Against a Zarthan war squadron, they were little more than prey. Elias' mind raced, calculating their options. "Bring us to maximum speed," Elias ordered. plot a course through the asteroid belt in Sector 9. We'll lose them there if we're lucky. But luck wasn't something the Zarthans believed in. As the crew scrambled, Elias turned to Laura and Nissa. You know their ships better than I do. Tell me how they'll come at us. What are their weaknesses? Laura hesitated, her luminous eyes conflicted. They'll use energy nets to trap you. The moment you enter the belt, they'll try to corner you from all sides. Nissa stepped forward, her expression fierce. If you're serious about this, Captain, then let me fight. I can override their boarding protocols, but I'll need access to your weapon systems. I know how they think. I was trained to be one of them. Elias studied her for a moment before nodding. Do it. Both of you work with my crew. Where? Getting out of this together. In the chaos of preparation, Laura and Nissa moved as if the chains on their wrists didn't exist. Laura fed critical intel to the helm, identifying enemy formations, while Nissa stood shoulder to shoulder with Rin at the weapons console, her fingers dancing over the interface as though she'd been born for it. The first Zarthan ship broke through. The darkness, its sleek frame glinting like the edge of a blade. Energy beams sliced through the void, forcing Starfire to dive and roll. The crew worked with precision, but every impact rattled the hull and reminded them how outmatched they were. Brace for impact. Rin shouted as a blast ripped across. The shields. Elias gritted his teeth, his voice steady but carrying steel. Nissa now! With a growl, Nissa activated a counterattack, sending a burst of charged particles into the nearest ship's sensor array. The alien vessel flickered, its weapons momentarily blind. Laura seized the opening. Course 785 now, she commanded, and the Starfire shot between two larger ships, narrowly avoiding a net of glowing energy. The crew cheered, but the celebration was short-lived. A final transmission crackled through their comms, cold and unmistakable. Captain. Elias Voss, came the Queen's voice, her tone like silk wrapped around a blade. You have taken what is mine. Do not think I will let you keep it without proving your worth. This was only the first test. The transmission ended, and the silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. Elias stared at the fading stars ahead, his jaw set. He turned to Laura and Nissa, who stood watching him, their chains glinting under the soft light. Then let her test me, he said quietly but with uncheckable resolve. She's going to find I'm not the kind of man who breaks. The Starfire sailed through the silent void, but the air inside the ship felt anything but calm. The battle with the Zarthan warships had left the crew tense and wary. Scorched panels in the engineering bay hissed softly from where the shields had barely held. On the observation deck, Elias Voss leaned against the reinforced glass, watching the last traces of Zarthan space fade behind them. The Queen's words still echoed in his mind like a haunting refrain. This was only the first test. For the first time since taking command of Starfire, Elias sensed unease not just from his crew, but from the very air around him. It wasn't fear of the Zarthans alone, it was fear of the unknown. The chains that bound Laura and Nissa weren't just alien metal. They were symbols of a culture that played by rules no outsider could understand. His crew looked at him differently, now as though silently questioning what he had brought aboard. In the mess hall, Rin stood with arms crossed as Laura and Nissa entered. Their presence was like two contrasting storms. Laura moved with a quiet, almost ethereal grace, while Nissa's every step radiated tension, her movements sharp and deliberate. The room went quiet. Conversation stopped. A dozen pairs of eyes followed them, distrust heavy in the air. Elias joined them, his presence cutting through the unease. Listen up, he said, his voice calm but commanding. They are part of this crew now. Anyone who can't accept that can find another ship at the next port. One of the engineers, a burly man named Grath, muttered under his breath. Captain, with respect, they're Zarthan. You've seen what they can do. How do we know they won't turn on us the moment the Queen calls them back? Before Elias could respond, Nissa stepped forward, her chains clinking softly. She fixed Grath with a look so fierce it silenced him instantly. If I wanted to kill you, she said evenly, you'd already be dead. The tension spiked like a drawn blade. But Lara intervened. She placed a gentle hand on Nissa's arm and spoke, her voice soft but cutting through the room. We are not here to bring you harm. We are here because your captain saw something worth saving, even when our own people would not. We owe him and all of you more than words can repay. The room remained silent for a long moment before Rin gave a small nod. Fair enough, he said, glancing at Elias, but they'll have to earn the crew's trust. They will, Elias said with quiet certainty. Later, in the command center, Lura stood over the navigation console. She moved her fingers over the controls as if the complex star maps were second nature to her. Your current route is inefficient, she said softly, glancing at Elias. There's a corridor through the Borealis Rift, a shortcut your maps won't show. My people charted it centuries ago. Rin raised a skeptical brow. And why would we trust a path your people kept hidden from outsiders? Lara didn't look offended. Instead, she tapped a glowing point on the holographic map. Because if you stay on this route, the Queen's hunters will find us. This way. They won't. Elias studied her face, noting the quiet confidence there. He didn't see deception, only certainty. Plot the course, he said. Nissa, meanwhile, was in the training bay, testing herself against 3 of the crew's security officers. Her chains clinked with every strike and block, but they never slowed her. Within moments, she disarmed all 3, her movements fluid and deadly. Elias watched from the doorway, impressed despite himself. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he said with a wry smile. Nissa glanced at him, sweat glistening on her skin, but her tone remained sharp. I don't trust easily, Captain. But you made a choice no one else would have made. You have my loyalty now. Don't waste it. That night, Elias found himself alone in his quarters, staring at the faint glow of the chains around Lara and Nissa's wrists. He could feel the weight of them like an invisible tether pulling at his conscience. Were they truly free? Or had he simply exchanged one prison for another? The ship trembled suddenly, breaking him from his thoughts. Alarms blared across the quay. Deck. Captain to the bridge. Rin's voice barked over the comm. We've got incoming something's following us, but it's not Zarthan. Elias rushed to the bridge, Lura and Nissa arriving just behind him. On the forward display, a shape emerged from the void, sleek, jagged, and utterly alien. It wasn't a Zarthan warship. Its hull pulsed like living tissue, and its movements were erratic, almost predatory. What in the void is that? Rin muttered. Lara's face drained of color. That is not Zarthan. That is something worse. A void harrower. They feed on ships. On people. We need to run. Elias clenched his jaw. Run? No, not without a fight. Nissa's hand tightened on her chains, her eyes flashing with something close to fear. Then we fight, Captain. But know this, if we survive, the Queen's tests will feel like child's play compared to what's coming. The ship shook again as the alien predator gave chase, its organic hull splitting open like a maw ready to swallow them whole. For the first time, Elias felt the full weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He had chosen both women, but perhaps the universe had chosen him for something far greater and far deadlier than he'd imagined. The starfire bucked violently as the void harrower closed in, its grotesque organic hull shimmering like a nightmare given shape. The ship's alarms wailed through the corridors, each pulse a reminder of how close death was stalking them. In the command center, Captain Elias Voss gripped the railing, his knuckles white. as the creature's massive tendrils slammed against the shields, sending ripples of energy flickering across the display. Shields at 30%. Rin shouted, his voice tight with panic. "Captain, this thing's draining our power like it's feeding on us." Elias stared at the screen, his jaw clenched. The Harrower was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just a ship. It was alive, its pulsating core beating like a heart, each throb sending waves of corrosive energy against their defenses. "Weapons full spread," Elias ordered. "Target that glowing section there, tear it apart." But their plasma cannons barely scratched the creature's surface. Each blast was absorbed, swallowed by the alien hide as if the Void Harrower was feeding on the attacks. Nissa, standing at the weapons console, snarled in frustration. "This is useless. These weapons are toys against something like that." "Then what would you suggest?" Elias shot back. "Something they can't eat," she replied, her dark eyes glinting. "We overload the drive. Channel raw energy and hit them with a burst too unstable to absorb." Rin spun around, horrified. "You mean use our core as a weapon? Captain, that could rip Starfire apart." Before Elias could decide, Lyra stepped forward, her chains glowing faintly, almost as if they resonated with the creature outside. Her luminous eyes widened. "Wait, I know this thing. It's not just a predator. It's a relic of the old void, something my people have feared for millennia." Elias turned to her, confusion and urgency battling in his mind. "You know how to stop it?" "Maybe," she said, voice trembling but steady. "The chains hour." Chains are not just symbols. They were forged from the same energy that binds creatures like this. If I can interface with the Starfire's power grid through the chains, I can disrupt its feeding cycle. But she hesitated, glancing at Nissa. "It will hurt. It could kill us both." "Then we do it," Nissa said instantly, stepping closer. "If this is what it takes, we do it." Elias' chest tightened. He looked at them, two women he had pulled from the edge of captivity, and now they were ready to throw themselves into the fire for his crew. "No," he said, "there has to be another way." "There isn't," Laura said softly, her silver hair falling over her face as she met his gaze. "You chose both of us, Captain, but we choose this. Let us fight." The decision was agony, but Elias nodded. "Do it. But I swear, if either of you dies, I'll burn this universe down before I let their memory fade." The engineering bay became a storm of sparks and glowing conduits as Rhea and Nissa connected their chains to the ship's energy core. A blinding hum filled the room, the chains glowing brighter, turning almost white-hot. Elias watched from the control deck, his heart hammering. Outside, the Harrower reeled, as if sensing something new and dangerous brewing aboard Starfire. Its tendrils flailed, striking harder, desperate to breach the hull. Power surge incoming. Rin warned, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Core is overloading. Captain, we have 5 seconds before she blows." "Now!" Elias shouted. A burst of raw energy erupted from the ship, arcing through space like a solar flare. The Harrower convulsed, its organic shell cracking and splitting apart, black ichor spewing into the void. The creature screamed, a soundless psychic shriek that rattled everyone's mind before it imploded, torn apart by the unstable energy. The bridge fell silent, except for the faint hum of emergency systems. Elias sprinted to engineering, his chest tight with fear. He found Lara on her knees, her chains scorched and smoking, her breath ragged. Nissa was leaning against a console, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth, but her eyes still fierce. "You're both alive," Elias breathed, relief washing over him like a wave. "Barely," Nissa said, trying to smirk but wincing instead. "Your ship hits harder than I thought." Luri looked up at him, her glowing eyes dim but determined. Captain, there's something you need to know. Elias crouched beside her. What is it? These chains, she whispered, lifting her wrist slightly, are not just bonds of duty, they are keys. Whoever bears them controls a power older than the Zarthan queen herself. By claiming us both, you've taken more than you realize. You've inherited a war. Elias stared at her, the words sinking like lead into his mind. A war? Laura nodded weakly. The Void Harrower was not hunting by chance, it was sent. Something knows about you now, something ancient, and it will come. The lights flickered as though the ship itself shuddered at her words. Outside the viewport, the void stretched endlessly, quiet and dark. But Elias felt it, the sense of something vast and unseen watching from beyond the stars. I don't care who or what it is, Elias said, rising to his feet, his voice firm like steel. They can send 1,000 harrowers. I'll fight them all. This ship, this crew, and the two of you, we stand together now. And whatever's coming, it picked the wrong captain to hunt. Nissa let out a low, approving laugh despite her. Pain, then we fight, together. For the first time, Elias saw it a spark in their eyes, both Laura and Nissa. Not just duty. Not just survival. Trust. Something deeper, forming like fire in the dark, but in the shadow of that bond, a distant signal flickered through space, an encrypted Zarthan transmission aimed directly at the Queen. The game had only just begun. The stars ahead glimmered like shards of ice, but the horizon was far from calm. The Starfire drifted on minimal power, its systems battered after the fight with the Void Harrower. Elias Voss stood on the bridge, his reflection dark in the cracked surface of the forward console. Every part of him screamed to push forward, to outrun whatever shadow lingered in their wake. But deep inside, he knew something worse was coming. Laura's words, "You've inherited a war," played in his mind like a warning he couldn't ignore. Captain. Rin's voice broke the silence. He stood at the sensor station, his face pale. I think you need to see this. Elias turned, his gut already tightening. The main display flickered to life, revealing a fleet that stretched across the void like an iron curtain. Sleek Zarthan warships, their hulls glowing faintly with violet energy, were forming a net around the Starfire. Each ship was larger than his own, their formations perfect, almost ceremonial. It's her, Nissa said flatly, stepping onto the bridge. Her voice was steady, but her dark eyes flashed with something dangerous. The Queen isn't done testing you, Captain. She's here to collect. Elias narrowed his eyes. She doesn't get to collect anything. You don't understand. Laura said softly, appearing beside Nissa. She looked pale, her silver hair spilling like moonlight over her shoulders. The Queen knows now. She's not here to test you anymore. She's here because of me. Elias studied her face, hearing something in her tone he hadn't caught before. What aren't you telling me? Laura hesitated, then took a slow breath. Nissa and I are not just any Zarthan women. We were not chosen by chance. We are daughters of the Queen's line, bound by blood to carry out her will. These chains are not only symbols of duty, they are conduits. She can track us anywhere, even across the void. Elias froze for a moment, absorbing the weight of her words. You're telling me you're royalty? Nissa's expression hardened, her jaw set. Royalty is a curse, Captain. We were raised to be weapons, one mind, one blade. The Queen offered us to you not as a reward, but as bait. A test to see if you were worthy enough to wield what we represent. Which is? Elias asked, his voice dangerously calm. The Zarthan inheritance, Laura said, her voice barely above a whisper. A hidden power tied to the chains. Whoever claims us both is recognized as Warden of the Line. It means you now hold the right to command not only us, but the loyalty of the warrior clans that answer to the Queen's bloodline. Rin swore under his breath. You mean to tell me we're staring down a royal fleet because you've been crowned their enemy and their ruler? Elias turned toward the fleet, his expression like carved stone. No, we're staring down a queen who can't accept that someone outside her world dared to claim what she considers hers. A crackling transmission filled the bridge, smooth and venomous. Captain Elias Voss, came the Queen's voice, calm as ice. You have taken what belongs to me. You have dared to hold both daughters of my line. There is no precedent for your defiance. But I offer you one chance. Return them, and I will grant you safe passage. Refuse, and I will burn your ship to ansap tuatem ilemua during hemi fanme. Ash. The crew shifted uneasily. All eyes were on Elias. He didn't hesitate. No deal. They're not yours anymore. They're with me. A dangerous pause followed. The Queen's voice, when it returned, was like velvet lined with steel. Then you have chosen war, Captain. The fleet moved. Elias turned to his crew, his voice sharp. Shields up. Plot an escape vector. Use the asteroid belt ahead. Lara, Nissa, whatever secrets your people hid in this ship's chains, I need them now. Nissa smirked despite the tension, rolling her shoulders like a predator preparing to strike. Finally, a fight worth having. Lara stepped forward, her glowing eyes locked on the tactical display. If you trust me, Captain, I can access the chains and channel their power directly into the ship's systems. But it will push us beyond human limits. Do it, Elias said without hesitation. We're not bowing to anyone. The first Zarthan warship fired, its beam cutting through the dark like a scythe. The starfire lurched as the shields absorbed the hit, but the strain was immediate. Sparks rained from the ceiling panels. Ara and Nissa knelt by the central power conduit, their chains connecting with the ship's core. A surge of alien energy pulsed through the hull, and for a heartbeat, the starfire felt alive, its systems humming with a power that was neither human nor machine. On the view screen, the next Zarthan volley bent mid-flight, deflected as though the ship had wrapped itself in an unseen barrier. What the hell? Rin muttered, staring in disbelief. We're repelling their attacks? Not for long. Lara said, her voice strained. This energy is unstable. If we don't break their formation now, we'll burn ourselves out. Elias saw the opening, his instincts screaming at him to act. Helm full thrust. Target that gap between their forward ships and punch through. The starfire shot forward like a spear, the enhanced engines roaring with alien fury. Nissa's fingers danced over the weapons console, sending bursts of energy unlike anything the crew had seen before. White-hot arcs that ripped through Zarthan shields and left two ships spinning, but as they cleared the blockade, a single massive vessel loomed ahead, blocking their path. It was larger than any warship Elias had ever seen, its hull adorned with glowing symbols that pulsed like a living heart. That's no ordinary warship, Nissa said darkly. That's the Queen's personal flagship. A final transmission came through, but this time it wasn't just the Queen's voice, it was her image, projected into the center of the bridge. She stood tall, robed in silver, her golden eyes blazing. Elias Voss, she said, her voice a dagger of ice. You dare to wield the chains of my bloodline against me? Then I shall test you, not as a queen, but as a warrior. Survive this, and you will claim more than just my daughters. You will claim my throne. The projection vanished, and the flagship's weapons charged with an ominous hum that shook the stars themselves. Elias looked at Lara and Nissa, both of whom met his gaze with quiet resolve. Then we fight, he said. The void screamed. The Queen's flagship, Virelia's Judgment, filled the starfield like a god descending to war. Its hull gleamed with living metal, ancient Zarthan glyphs pulsing in rhythmic patterns as if the ship itself were chanting a death hymn. From its spires, a corona of violet lightning shimmered, charging weapons that hadn't been fired in centuries, relics from the first age of the Zarthan Empire, meant to destroy civilizations, not just ships. On the Starfire's bridge, the silence was broken only by the steady rhythm of warning klaxons and the hum of systems pushed past their design limits. Elias Voss stood at the center, one hand on the railing, eyes locked on the enemy ahead. "Status," he said, voice calm. "Despite the storm. Shields holding, but barely," Rin reported, fingers flying across the interface. "We're tapped into Luria's enhancement field, but the core's reaching overload. Another hit from that monster, and we're dust." Elias turned to Lura and Nissa, both kneeling beside the ship's heart. Their chains had fused with the conduits, pulsing with energy so intense it cast strange shadows across the walls. Lura looked up, her voice trembling but resolute. "Captain, we don't have time. The Queen's flagship is channeling the entire legacy of the bloodline into that weapon. She's not just trying to destroy you. She's trying to erase the choice you made." Nissa's eyes glinted. "She's afraid. You broke her law, claimed what she bound in chains, and now you command a power that rivals hers. She would rather see everything burn than let you rewrite her legacy." Elias's gaze darkened. "Then we give her a new one." Outside Virelia's, judgment fired. The blast tore space itself, a violet spear of raw, converging energy meant to cut the Starfire in two. Time slowed. The crew braced. But in that moment, Laura reached out, her hands glowing with an ancient light, her chains snapping tight with a sound like thunder. Nissa stood behind her, placing her hands over Laura's, adding her strength. Together, they activated the final protocol hidden within the Zarthan chains, a forgotten rite sealed away for generations. The ship did not dodge. It transformed. The Starfire's hull shimmered, fracturing into 1,000 glowing lines, then reformed sleeker, sharper, alive. The chains fed into the ship's new architecture like arteries into a heart. Zarthan runes blazed across its hull, not in submission but defiance. "What in the hell?" Rin gasped. "She's accepted the bond," Laura whispered. "The Starfire is no longer just a ship. She's a warden now." Elias stepped forward, feeling the pulse of the vessel beneath his feet alive, willing, angry. "Nissa weapons," he ordered. Nissa grinned like a wolf. "With pleasure." The Starfire retaliated, not with missiles or plasma, but with the full force of the Queen's own legacy turned against her. The chains now served Elias, and through him, the ship unleashed arcs of pure ancestral energy that tore through Zarthan, shielding like silk. 1, 2, 3 escort ships were vaporized in a flash of white fire. But the Queen did not flinch. Her flagship advanced, hurling gravitational bombs, warping space, screaming defiance. The two vessels dueled across the stars, sparks of godfire lighting the void. The Queen's voice returned through the comms, ragged with fury. "You were nothing. A stray human, crawling in the dirt. You dare rise against me? You think love makes you worthy?" Elias responded with steel. "No, I don't think love makes me worthy. I think they do." With a roar, the Starfire closed the gap, plunging through the onslaught, her enhanced systems absorbing punishment no mortal ship could survive. Elias locked onto the Queen's core node, the control center for her ancient power relay. "Fire," he commanded. The blast struck true. Virelia's judgment shuddered, her runes cracking, systems shorting. The Queen's image blinked in and out, her control fading. "You cannot rewrite the law." Elias narrowed his eyes. Then maybe the law was wrong. With a final surge, Laura and Nissa combined their energy one last time. The chains disintegrated, unraveling into strands of light that flowed into the heart of the starfire sealing the transformation permanently. The Queen's ship fractured, then detonated in a burst of violet flame, a falling Titan, brought down not by war alone, but by choice. The silence that followed was deep, still. Stars twinkled over debris fields and drifting echoes of ancient power. The starfire hung motionless, wounded but victorious. In the aftermath, Elias stood in the observation deck beside Laura and Nissa. No chains remained on their wrists, only faint scar symbols of what they had borne. Laura leaned against the glass, her voice quiet. "She's gone. The bloodline is shattered." "Not shattered," Nissa said. "Freed." Elias looked at them both. "And you?" Nissa stepped forward, brushing her fingers across his arm. "We were bound by duty. Now we choose." Laura smiled, softly radiant. "And we choose to stay." Together, the three watched the stars shift. In the distance, the galaxy stirred. Whispers of the Queen's fall would spread. The Zarthan Empire would change. And at its edge, a new power would rise, not forged in blood or conquest, but in choice. Captain Elias Voss, the man who defied tradition, who chose both when the galaxy demanded one, had done the impossible. He hadn't just broken the chains, he'd unmade them.